there are almost 120 companies that are owing billions and billions of naira. Do you think something is working? Is it likely, like perhaps like Skybank, First Bank is also through the back door getting some of these delinquent brokers, name and shame perhaps that they did, and they're paying back? And investors are hearing, market hears it, look, it looks like some debtors are paying back monies into First Bank. We need to give this stock a second look. We need to reprice it.
Yes, well, evidently the bank has taken steps to sort of limit the impact of non-performing loans on its loan books, and we've started to see that we've started to see the impact of that. So even investors and analysts as well, when you factor that into your valuation, you can see that the stock will be slightly undervalued at current prices, and this is why we're starting to see a rally in the stock. What I saw
and what we saw in the last 1 week or two was massive buying in those banks you mentioned. Yes. Hundreds of millions of shares running into several millions of dollars. Zenith, UBA, FBNH, and Access included. So do you think this 4 or 5 financial services company, there's a massive investors' interest in them? What are they looking at? They've seen Q3. Are they looking at Q4? Are they looking at other fundamentals?
Well, looking at these banks that you just mentioned, looking at their 9 months performance, which have been very, very positive. Even looking at their full year 2016 performance when the economy slid into a recession, these banks remained resilient and were able to churn out impressive results. So considering this factor, a lot of investors' interest has actually been centered in them. Also on the liquidity side of things, you're quite certain that if you buy into the stocks and there's a need to sell, there would be that opportunity for you to sell. So on a liquidity, from a liquidity standpoint also, it's also good for investors.
Okay, let's take a quick look at this very interesting all-share index, Nigeria's composite index chart there on the screen. And thank you there. Now let's look at this together. The first point of where we saw on the far left of the screen is where we had about 34,000 thereabouts around December 2014 when the general elections fever was getting people pitched. Was that a point when we dropped to 30,000, even below 30, to around 28? That was where foreign investors or portfolio investors decided to shake out of the market?
Well, if you even recall from the later parts of 2014, so from second half of 2014, when oil prices started to crash, we also saw that start to affect the economy, and then with the uncertainties surrounding the election period, we saw a lot of investors start to pull out of the market, start to stay clear of the market, waiting until they could get further certainty with regards to how the Nigerian economy as a whole would be moving. So that was one of the major factors that drove that.
Then we dropped below 28. Then we went down to about 27. That's the first point of the bottom that I'm seeing there. Then we had a bit of an uptick around May 2015. Between March thereabout, that's around the time of the elections. Because hope were rising.
Yes, it was termed the Buhari rally.
I remember the Buhari effect. Thanks for reminding me that. Yes, that was when we went back. We shot back to about 36,000. Then from March 2015 down to even when the inauguration was on May 29, the stock market took a nosedive. Then we had another dip there. You can see that around between July and August, September 2015. Then the market took another dip into December 2015. Then you can see that, folks, there around the middle of the page. That's around the end of 2015. That was really nasty.
Yes, we started to see, so like I mentioned, the generally weaker macroeconomic conditions continue to weigh on investors.
So all that deep dive that we saw were a bit on the economic and political, uncertainty period we had.
Yes, uncertainty was one of the factors, and then around this period we also had a sustained widening in the spread between the official FX rate and parallel market rate.
Yeah,
so this was another factor that we know how sensitive our economy as a whole is to development.
Then we have the ban on 41 items.
The ban on 41 items. But around June 2016, we had a slight uptick.
Yes.
This was when the CBN first announced the adoption of a flexible exchange rate policy. So it was greeted with a lot of optimism. But as time went on, when it seemed like nothing had significantly changed, we started to see investors lose interest.
So we had a bit of a peak around January 2016. Then the market moved up. Then we went back above the 30,000, around 32,000. Then market was still unsure. So we saw that chart that's down a little bit again below 30,000, around 27, 28,000 before we see a return. So we had between October 2016 and March 2017, the market was a bit lackluster, and that's taking us towards where the point of the upward inversion now begin to occur.
Yes, so we started to see some improvements with regards to FX management. We saw the allowance for PTA and BTA
and the massive sales.
Individuals could now get those from their banks, which was followed by the launch of the investors and exporters FX window, markets in which rates were market determined. So for investors who want to bring in their funds and even repatriation, it could be done through that market. And we saw this significant interest that returned to the markets, because if you recall, because of the challenges that we had been having, a lot of Nigerian stocks had been significantly undervalued. We had investors start to just turn away from Nigerian markets and look for other developing.
Now they're coming back, and there's a very strong upward inversion to where we are.
Yes.
In just 1 minute to wrap this up, or less than 1 minute, what's the outlook for the rest of the year?
Well, for the rest of the year, we expect the rally to be sustained. We expect this positive performance to be continued based on three factors: the fact that oil prices are increasing, external reserves are rising, and oil production volumes remain high.
Let's come back to get welcome back.
Thank you.
Get some time again before the year ends to continue that chat from there and see where the Nigeria stock market or share index go. Eromosele Aziba, one of the investment analysts at Afrinvest. When we return, the central bank has hundreds of billions of naira on the table. So they spend the weekend, while some of you were watching the Premier League, the central bank governor, Godwin Emefiele, with some state governors and the Honorable Minister of Agric and the bank CEOs sat together to chart a new course for a lending to critical sectors of the economy, a single digit. You want to hear from the Emefiele and, of course, later from the governor of Lagos State, Akinwumi Ambode.